The Silent Hill series, while far from the most popular, has one of gaming's most dedicated followings. Its mix of atmosphere, horror, and relatable themes has allowed it to stand the test of time. However, it must not be assumed that the series is some stable, monolithic block. In fact, while there are themes that are common throughout the series, each title also offers its own unique flavor to the formula. This is apparent even within the first two titles in the series. This analysis will explore the differences between the two titles and just what makes them so different from each other. So welcome to Silent Hill 1 versus Silent Hill 2, a case study. Silent Hill 1 was a product of its time. Video games and horror had coexisted for a while, but 1992's Alone in the Dark really broke new grounds, with its mix of combat and puzzles along with a horror vibe. However, what really broke survival horror to the mainstream was 1996's Resident Evil. Building upon the groundwork that Alone in the Dark started, Capcom brought horrors to a new level with the use of jump scares, inventory management, and a horrifying range of enemies. That's not to say that this is the whole story. Resident Evil, while impressive for the time, still stuck with the pre-rendered graphics that Alone in the Dark used. Thus, despite having 3D character and enemy models, the title was not a fully fledged 3D title. And in a world where 3D gaming was becoming more and more desirable, with Super Mario 64 and even Konami's own Metal Gear Solid using 3D characters and environments, the writing was on the wall. 3D horror games had already existed on consoles years before Silent Hill. In fact, even the 3DO had one in the form of Dr. Hauser, and the PlayStation itself was no stranger to it. In fact, coming to my mind, the year prior, Konami itself localized Atlus's Dark Messiah in Europe under the name Hell Knight. What did separate Silent Hill from the rest was how well it worked. The fog and darkness, born partially from hardware limitations, provided fears and unknown terrors much better than the others could have hoped to. Silent Hill did not even need to rely on inventory management. Rather than the fear being the known factor of limited resources, it was the unknown factor of what was looking around the corner that truly twisted gamers' minds. Silent Hill was originally released in January 1999 for North American players, with Europe and Japan receiving it later in the year. However, there were some notable differences. The Grey Children were eliminated in the non-American releases, presumably due to the aversion to killing children. Curiously, they were already changed from the beta to look even less like children. The other notable difference that I can think of is the absence of an important news clip in the American version that provides background to the game's story. Silent Hill remains a PlayStation exclusive to this day. While there is a PlayStation 3 version, that's just merely the PlayStation 1 version being emulated.
James, honey, did something happen to you? After we got separated in that long hallway? Are you confusing me with someone else?
Silent Hill 2 came out around 2 years later. However, in those 2 years was a world of change. The PlayStation was replaced with its successor, the PlayStation 2, which provided much more robust 3D capabilities along with bigger storage capacity for its games. The result? A title that had to rely even more on its grotesque themes and use of terror than its predecessor, not being able to hide behind the same technological limitations that the original could. Keiichiro Toyama, Silent Hill 1's writer and director, left Konami after the first game. The New Blood decided that rather than continue Toyama's premise, They would create a self-contained story that did not necessitate prior knowledge to enjoy. This title focuses instead on James Sunderland. This time, Konami decided to release the title on a plethora of platforms. The original platform was still the PlayStation family, but it would also receive Xbox and PC ports, with the extra features, namely the Born from a Wish sub-scenario, and along with the secret UFO ending, were re-added into the PlayStation 2 release later on. There was also an HD remaster for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, though I use that term rather loosely considering its quality. If I were to recommend a version, I would go either with the PlayStation 2 re-release, which has the extra content, or if you're interested in mods, you can get a vastly improved PC version that was recently released called Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition. Silent Hill focuses primarily on the occult. Religion plays a huge role in the title, with the game's two primary antagonists being a deity itself, along with the fanatical Dahlia Gillespie. The Order controlled the city's economy, and the desire to create a paradise is a direct catalyst to the game's conflict. Harry Mason's conflict is clearly an external one. On the other hand, Silent Hill 2 was a much less religious and a much more introspective title. James Sunderland fights his own fears and insecurities as he continues his journey. There are other supporting characters, yes, but the driving force is he himself, and he essentially plays a dual performance by being both the game's protagonist along with the game's antagonist. This is where the true difference lies. The atmosphere is completely different between the two, and what makes each title truly unique. Silent Hill can be described as hellish, or downright evil. The rusty locales gives a sense of rot and decay, hinting towards the city's moral corruption. The music definitely reflects that. Controlled chaos is a pretty accurate, if somewhat contradictory, term to describe its soundscape. It is not at all conventional music and can be more accurately described as part of the atmosphere itself instead of being separate from it. On the contrary, Silent Hill 2 is a much more depressing title, rather than being downright evil. James is a miserable person, and it shows. The lonesome walk to Silent Hill, the traversal through an abandoned hotel. The depression is there, and you can really feel it. The music in this game is also much more dreary as a result. Instead of an outright slaughter, it's more of a slow burn towards the abyss. I already brought this up earlier in the video, but it is worth repeating. Silent Hill focuses on the external fears, rather than the internal. Harry Mason has to fight an onslaught of enemies that are not related to him at all. Nurses, doctors, dogs, children, etc. Dr. Kaufman, Alessa Gillespie, and Dahlia Gillespie are also obstacles to his goals in retrieving his daughter, and they all manipulate him to achieve their own purposes, until he finally confronts the final boss. Silent Hill 2 only really has one external foe, Eddie Dombrowski, who serves as a foil to James Sunderland. Everything else is essentially a manifestation of James's own fears. Nurses represent sexual perversion, Pyramid Head serves as his repression of Mary's murder, and Maria is an idealized version of his late wife. This is a much more psychological affair that explores the various states and flaws inherent in James himself. Evidently, I can go on much, much longer. The games are so rich in symbolism and lore that they will never be fully explored. However, for a primer and general introduction to the series, I feel that this serves its purpose, especially when taking into consideration on which title to start with. Realistically, either pick is a good choice to ease into the series. However, the best choice depends on what you're looking for. Interested in seeing where the series began? And the catalyst for future titles in the franchise? More concerned with the interpersonal issues that plague today's world? Go with Silent Hill 1. More interested in a standalone title that explores the intrapersonal torments that we can face? Go with Silent Hill 2. No matter the decision, you'll have a great road ahead of you.